Welcome to the need beneath the habit. So I want to talk about like the beliefs and the quick reliefs that are controlling and often ruining your peace and your life. There's a lot of ways to avoid yourself, and that can be alcohol, drugs, scrolling. It's a pretty popular one. Gambling or porn. I mean, it can just be shutting down, avoiding the conversation that you know you need to have. Whatever it is, it's usually a habit that you look at and you think, I must not care about my own life. And I don't think any of that's true. It's most people, they're not waking up and trying to ruin their health or blow up their relationships, waste their money, or disappear from themselves. They're trying to get through something, and I get that. I mean, you might feel overwhelmed, mentally tired, anxious, uncomfortable in your own skin, and you just want some relief. And that makes a lot of sense at the time. So can you please let me know in the chat, what's an emotion that keeps coming up that you just try and silence? And when you're in that moment, the habit, it doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like a need. I need a drink. I need to get high. I need to scroll until I'm numb. Or I really need to get out of my head. I need anything that will take the edge off. And that feeling, it's very real. But the habit, it's not usually the real need. It's usually a fast, familiar strategy for meeting a real need. It's the strategy to alter your state. Now, like, maybe it helps you survive something once. Perhaps it gave you relief when you had no other way to get through the day. Maybe it still gives you an hour to switch off. But eventually, the thing that helps you cope, it starts running your life. And look, I know that pretty personally. Before I move on to that, I'll just check a couple of your comments. Yeah, anxiety's a big one, Geneva. I get that. Yeah, it can really lead us to avoiding ourselves and avoiding what we need to do. But it's an understandable reaction. Look, I'll show you a picture now. This is probably over a decade ago. Yeah, it is. Looks like I'm having a great day. No, not really. It's a pretty horrible day. I'm just with my brother Nick. Dragged me up a mountain in Nelson. I'd had a seizure in the morning. Probably too many pills. Yeah, that's kind of the way my life was then. I had a serious back injury when I was younger, and I was told that I'd have chronic pain, forever basically, and I got prescribed OxyContin, and at the time, it made sense to me. I'd wake up in pain. Sometimes, I'd already be feeling withdrawal. And the first thing I would do to take the edge off is that I'd have a couple of pills, because that's what I've been prescribed. And I convinced myself it was the only way to get through the day. Pain meant pills. And that became the belief in my head. It's pretty shitty one. But I want you to keep that idea of beliefs in mind, and I'll come back to it. All right. Well, yeah, there are days where I would take more than I was meant to. Then I'd tell myself it's all right. I'll take less tomorrow. But tomorrow never really worked like that. It was always those little lies. I'll get serious next week. I just need today. And I'm not sharing that because I think it was a weakness. I'm sharing it because I got caught in something that made sense at the time, that my nervous system got used to, and I felt safe there, even if it was hurting me, ruining my life. I was in pain. I feared the pain, and I'd been told pain was just a part of my life now. So I kept reaching for the thing that gave me relief, even when it was slowly taking more and more from me. And that's how these patterns work. Not because there's something broken in you, not because you don't care, because the pattern, it's doing a job. And I'd like to talk about beliefs for a few minutes. I said I'd come back to that, as it ties into all of this. So there you go. Your beliefs become the roots your life grows from. And this is the part I really want people to hear. The habit, it's not always the deepest problem. Sometimes the deeper problem is the belief that you create about yourself because you have had the problem. You can think like you're weak, you can't change, you'll always be like this. The old classic, once an addict, always an addict, which I think is bullshit. I'm broken. My emotions are just too much. I need something to numb this. I'm not good enough without the thing that helps me escape. And once those beliefs settle in, they start affecting everything. They affect what you think you're capable of. They affect what you tolerate, what you avoid, and they affect what you reach for when life gets uncomfortable. They allow you to avoid yourself, and they become the foundation you're trying to build your life on. And if that foundation is shame, guilt, helplessness, and the belief that you're always going to be this way, then of course it feels impossible. But when you start changing the beliefs you hold about yourself, your whole perception starts to change. You see yourself differently. You see your habits differently. You see the urge differently. And you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And you start asking, what did I learn to believe about myself when I was at my lowest? So if you're comfortable with it, I'd like you to put in the chat, what's one belief you created about yourself from one of your worst moments. The first thing that comes to mind, it doesn't have to be polished or anything like that, because that belief might be one of those things quietly keeping you frozen in place. So, all right. So, yeah, today I want to talk about the 6 human needs, and it's just a lens for that. Let's put these up. All right. And while I'm going through them, ask yourself, which need am I getting, and which ones are you meeting in a way that takes you further and further away from yourself? It's a simple way of looking at why you can keep doing the things you know are hurting you. And the 6 needs, as you can see here, certainty, variety, growth, contribution, love and connection, and significance. And like when you look closely at a destructive habit, it's usually trying to meet one or more of those needs. So before I start going through them, though, I have a little story, I guess I'm going to tell. So you're in a house in the middle of winter, and you're freezing. You don't have any firewood. You don't know what else to do. So you break up a chair and you throw it in the fire, and it works. You get warm. And the next night, you do it again. And maybe it's the table next, and eventually it's the door. You're not doing it because you're stupid or because you want to wreck your own house. You're cold. You're trying to get the relief with the fastest thing you have available. But eventually you look around and realize the very thing that kept you warm for a few hours has been slowly dismantling the place that was meant to keep you safe. That's exactly what destructive habits are doing. The need underneath is real, the relief is real, but the strategy can quietly take apart your health, your relationships, your money, and your self-respect, and the life that you're trying to build. All right, I got, let me put next slide on for you. There we go. So now I'll start with certainty. So you can have a rough day, you're tense, angry, perhaps drained. You feel like your head has been full all day and you haven't had a second to breathe. And you get home and the house is quiet. Maybe the kids are finally asleep. Maybe your partner asks how your day was, and like you don't even know how to respond without just dumping everything on your mind. And like, you know exactly what the drink is going to do, you know what scrolling for hours is going to do, what the binge on the food, the distraction, or just disappearing is going to do. So, the relief is coming. That's certainty. It might be destructive, but it's predictable. And predictable can feel safer than sitting with grief, anxiety, anger, loneliness, shame, or like whatever has been waiting underneath the surface all day. The habit says, do this and you'll feel different. And shit, like for a little while, you do. But that's the trap. The habit gives you certainty for an hour or so, then it makes the rest of your life uncertain. Your health and your money becomes uncertain. Your sleep becomes uncertain. Your relationship becomes uncertain. And your ability to trust yourself becomes uncertain. Now, like you tell yourself you only have a couple, you'll only gamble $20, you'll only scroll for 30 minutes, then you wake up feeling rough, anxious, broke, or all of the above. You promise your partner you'll be more present, and then you disappear into the same thing again. You become certain about the escape and uncertain about your life, which is completely backwards. And every time you break another promise to yourself, a little bit of self-trust goes with it. Not all at once, not everything, but it quietly just leaves you. And that's the damage that, other people don't even see. And look, before I move on to variety, can tell me in the chat if you like, what's something that gives you a bit of certainty for a little while, but perhaps causes some chaos later. All right, variety. So yeah, stimulation can feel like escape while life gets considerably smaller. People hear the word variety, I suppose, and they think about travel and adventure, excitement, but destructive habits can give you variety too. A chemical shift, a bit of a rush, a different mood, a different version of yourself for a few hours. Sometimes I guess that's just what you feel like you need. So for some people, it's not even about pleasure. It's about getting a break from the same painful thoughts that they carry around every day. The habit makes your mind feel different. It gives you something to do, someone to be around, perhaps. Sometimes it brings in new crowds and new environments, new late nights, new stories. And people will tell themselves it's fun and shit, like maybe some of it is, but it's often the kind of fun you wake up from feeling guilty, flat, anxious, embarrassed, especially by something you might have said, or money that you spent, messages you sent, or plans you ruined, or perhaps a promise that you made and broke again. You can be sitting in the same spot every night and still feel like you're escaping because your internal state keeps changing. But your world gets smaller. It's the same couch, phone, same bottle, same tomorrow morning, same regret. And that's not really living, is it? It's just stimulation. There's a very big difference between the two. And, real variety expands your life, whereas, avoidance just shrinks it. All right, and now we get to significance. This one can be a little bit harder to admit because sometimes you can feel unseen, for so long that chaos can become one of the only ways that you feel noticed. The person nobody understands, the person who always has something going wrong, or the person that has to be saved, the person, I guess, whose pain fills the room because it's the only way they know how to feel like they matter. And I'm not saying people like consciously create drama. Most people don't. But when you've lived with like pain, rejection, shame, trauma, addiction, or just feeling invisible for long enough, you struggle. It starts to become part of your identity. And, anger can often rise in you, and that can make you feel pretty significant too. So you start to think, who am I without this? Would anyone notice me if I was okay? And the problem can start to feel like part of who you are. But real significance is quite different. It's not being the loudest pain in the room. It's keeping your word when nobody's watching. It's becoming someone you can respect. It's not reacting when you could. It's being someone your kids feel safe around. It's being someone your partner can trust. It's taking responsibility for your own life, even when you have every reason to be angry about what's happened to you. That's significance. Not being consumed by the problem, but becoming bigger than it. So then there's love and connection. Certainly one I would say everybody can relate to, wants, but a destructive habit can become your most reliable companion. It doesn't judge you, doesn't ask too much from you. It's always there when you want to escape. Just, it can feel very reliable. So, sometimes it even gives you a sense of belonging, a drinking culture, a friend group, a shared escape where everyone tells each other it's normal, but it slowly pulls you away from the connection you actually want. Because when you're disconnected from yourself, you start hiding. You avoid the honest conversation. You stop answering messages. You get short with your partner. You withdraw from your family. You might be at the dinner table, but your whole body is somewhere else. Your partner and your kids might be outside laughing and playing, and you can hear them through the window, but you don't want to join them. Not because you don't love them, but because you feel burnt out, you feel flat, foggy, guilty, and irritated, disconnected from yourself. And when you're disconnected from yourself, it's very hard to feel connected to anyone else. It's like our relationships are a mirror of our internal world a lot of the time. Our relationship with ourselves always impacts the relationships we have with others. It's one of those things. You can be in a room full of people, friends, still feel completely alone. And in that moment, like, what do you reach for? The same thing that gave you relief last time. That's the loop. It promises connection, but leaves you feeling far more isolated. It promises relief and just adds another layer of shame. So then we come to growth. So growth is where the old strategy starts getting challenged, because growth asks you to do things that feel unfamiliar, to sit with feelings instead of running from them, to have the conversation, to say sorry, to say, I need some help, to go to bed when you want to stay up, to exercise when you'd rather not, rather just disappear perhaps. To stop blaming everybody else for the parts of your life that you can actually change. The habit says you don't have to feel this. And for a while, that sounds like a pretty good deal. But the cost is that you don't become more capable. You stay in the same patterns, same reactions, same arguments, same week on repeat. And like, growth is uncomfortable because it asks something new of you, but it's also where you start building a life that doesn't need so much escaping from. It's just one of those things, I guess. But I don't know if you'd like to put in the chat, what's one part of your life that you'd like to grow? I'd like to hear that. What's one thing that you've been avoiding that you could do today, this week, that would help you move towards the life that you actually want? Scrolling here. All right, well, I'll come to contribution now. So this is the one that I think, oops. This is the one people often leave out. For some people, it's God. For others, it's purpose, family, service, or community. And I guess what people in recovery would often call a good, orderly direction. It's something bigger than your mood, something bigger than what you're feeling like doing in the moment. Because when all your energy is going into managing the next escape, there's not really much left for the things that matter. Less of you for your kids and your partner, less of you for your work, less of you for the life that you keep saying you want. And you're not just losing time, you're losing the chance to build something with it. And you don't need to wait until everything is gone to start changing. You don't need to wait until you lose the relationship, until your health gets worse, until your kids stop trusting you or your money's gone, until you've wasted another 5 years telling yourself you'll sort it out tomorrow. Rock bottom, it's not a requirement. You don't have to lose everything to prove that it hurts enough. Because the truth is, the pain of change can feel really overwhelming, scary, and it can feel like giving up the only thing that has ever helped. Even when that thing is hurting you. That is because familiar can feel safe. Now, I have a quote here I'd like to show you. Well, it's Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. It's one that I like, makes a lot of sense. Carl Jung was a psychologist, done a lot of psychoanalytic theory, and a lot of what I do is it's grounded in the work he did, and the work with the subconscious, it can really help people move forward, especially understanding and changing those patterns underneath. Your nervous system, it learns patterns. Your body learns them. Your subconscious learns them. Rough day, tight chest, mind racing, feel rejected, ashamed, or you feel lonely, and you reach for the same old thing. And every time it gives you relief, even for a little while, your subconscious gets programmed. It learns, when I feel this, do that. And that doesn't mean you're broken. It means that the pattern got practiced a lot. But the good thing about that is that you can practice another pattern. Change can feel really threatening. I understand that, because it asks you to do something different at the exact moment your body is screaming for what's familiar. You can say you want to change and still feel pulled back into the old life. And that doesn't make you dishonest. It doesn't mean you don't want it badly enough. It means part of you still believes the old strategy is what's keeping you safe. Even when it's costing you the very things you're trying to protect, your subconscious beliefs keep you stuck. And that's why awareness really matters. You can't change a pattern when you keep calling it random. You need to start seeing the sequence. What happened before the urge? What were you feeling? What story were you telling yourself? What did the habit promise you? And what did it cost you afterwards? And what did it take from the life you could be building? Because once you can see the loop, you have a chance to interrupt it. Not perfectly, not forever, just once, and then again, and then again. And the next time you feel the urge to escape, don't just ask, how do I stop this? Ask, what am I feeling right now? What do I think I need? What is this habit promising me? What is the real need underneath it? Maybe you need some certainty. Maybe you need some rest. Maybe you need connection. Maybe you need to feel like you matter. Maybe you just need a break from your own thoughts. But then write it down. Don't just think it, write it. You know, our thoughts are far more complicated than any maths equation. And I'm sure that you probably need to write those down. So if you need to work out your thoughts, put them on paper and figure it out, you know, one step at a time. Think about, like, what happened? What am I feeling? What am I telling myself? What's one more honest way I could meet that need? Maybe certainty is hugging a loved one you know loves you, having a shower, making food, just writing a plan for tomorrow, or just going to bed a bit earlier. Maybe connection is sending the message you've been avoiding. Maybe variety is going somewhere new, going for a walk, doing something that makes you feel alive without messing up tomorrow. Maybe significance is keeping one small promise to yourself, and maybe growth is staying with the discomfort for just 10 more minutes. And maybe contribution is getting up and joining your family outside instead of disappearing from them. Small choices, they never look dramatic, but they start rebuilding trust. The trust you have with yourself. And once you start trusting yourself again, your whole life starts to feel different. And that's where it starts. Not by hating the part of you that coped, but by understanding what it was trying to do. Then getting honest about what it's costing you now. I mean, that's a big part of the work I do, not just like telling people to be more disciplined or throwing them motivational quotes when they're drowning. You know, it's actually looking at the loop, the trigger, the feeling, the belief, the story, and the cost, and then looking at the identity underneath it and releasing the beliefs and the emotions that keep you stuck, and essentially like just installing new beliefs that lead to new responses that create more self-trust, more stability, more direction, and more choice. So if something in you wants to change, you know, you can message me or comment breakthrough, and we can have a chat. I did say I would give a couple of people some free sessions, a free session each. I also have my 7-day Rewire workbook. You can message me about that or comment in the chat. Rewire, that can just give you a bit of clarity. It's just a practical place to start, so you can reflect on the patterns you're stuck in, what they might be trying to give you. And yeah, I mean, if you are tired of trying to figure it out on your own, you can book a 30-minute clarity session with me. They're free, and I'll look at a couple of people to give a 60 to 90-minute session to try and get some breakthroughs for you, give you some clarity and progress, go a little bit deeper. We can look at the pattern that's been running your life, what it's trying to give you, and what needs to change. Because you can create a better life, but your current strategy, it might need to change. And you're allowed to build a better life. Now, I appreciate everyone being here. That's all I have to say. I see there's been quite a few people watching. I'll get to all these comments, and yeah, I really appreciate everyone being here. See ya.